In response to the latest indictment in Georgia, Donald Trump, he announced that he's going to hold a press conference on Monday. He also added this to Truth Social. A large, complex, detailed, but irrefutable report on the presidential election and the fraud which took place in Georgia is almost complete and will be presented by me, at the major news conference at 11 a.m. on Monday next week in Bedminster, New Jersey. Based on the results of this conclusive report, all the charges should be dropped against me and others. There will be a complete exoneration. They never went after those rigged election. They never went after the rigged election. No, they didn't. They only went after those who fought to find the riggers. So he puts that up on Truth Social. He says they never went after those who rigged the election. Instead, they went after the people who were going after the riggers, the people who actually rigged the election. And of course, the media said that the word riggers was racist. What? So you can add the word riggers because they rigged the election. Like what else are you supposed to call them? People who rigged the election? Like, come on. I guess we can add the word riggers to the growing list of what the media is now calling racist. Coffee, camping. If you camp, you're a racist. Air. If you like fresh air, if you like going outside, touching some grass, I guess that's racist. Hot weather is racist. Being tidy is racist. Waking up early is racist. Exercising is racist. Gardening is racist. Bicycling, that's racist. So add the word riggers to the growing list of things that the media claims is racist. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz, 6:08 a.m. and it's a Friday. I'm so excited. We've got so much to get to today. Specifically, I do want to start out with this indictment and a local story here surrounding a pastor in Illinois who's being indicted alongside President Donald Trump. So we're going to get to that here coming up in just a bit. But I also want to talk about the viral sensation, Oliver Anthony, defying the media attacks with a call for Americans to unite. So Oliver Anthony, he's very much not into social media. He didn't have a Twitter account until like a couple of weeks ago when he launched his song. And he was not very present on social media at all, but he took to social media and he was filming himself with a statement. And the media is trying to attack this guy. The attacks are just full force ahead, and he's just defying them because he's calling for unity. So we're going to get to that next. There's an Illinois law out there. It has become law. It was an anti-doxing bill, and this is the latest attack on free speech. This is actually very important for you to know because I want to caution you against posting things. And this is, I tell you all the time, get out of liberal cities and get out of blue states. You're not going to do any good here. Maybe a purple state. This is where you want to go. If you move, go to a purple state and move into a red community, like a red town. Okay, that's what you've got to do because you're not gonna. I say it all the time. I don't know. I'm very pessimistic, I guess, about the state of Illinois because I've seen it. I've seen the side where they break the law and then they change the law. I've seen where Republicans in Illinois don't stand up for what's right. So I say get out of blue states, blue cities, because they are going to cuff you. They're going to cuff you. They're centralizing the police force. You can see it with the Safety Act, things that they did to get rid of the volunteer sheriff's department. There's, I think, a coordinated attack on volunteer fire departments coming down from the state. And this could possibly get you imprisoned for making a post on Facebook. That's what's going on in the state of Illinois. You could be imprisoned, you could be, uh, held financially liable for doxing somebody. This bill is very broad, this law. Now he signed it, Governor J.B. Pritzker, and you need to pay attention because it could affect you later. Chris Pratt. I love Pratt. He's great. He's wrecking all the haters with this hilarious pre-apology, and I guess it's picked up. I love when these things like get picked up in the news, and they're from like 2015, and you're like, why are people talking about it now? But he wrote this amazing pre-apology to those who might try to cancel him again in the future. So I think that this is a hilarious pre-apology that he put out there on Facebook in 2015. So today's Friday. We're going to go back into the flashback way back machine and we're going to flash back to this post from 2015 because it's making its rounds because Chris Pratt, he was praying at the Dodger Stadium for Christian Family Day. He's been very outspoken about how uh, God has moved in his life. So we're going to talk about Chris Pratt today. But first, let's talk about this Illinois pastor being indicted alongside President Donald Trump earlier this week. You might have caught my interview with David Shostokis. David Shostokis is a very well-known attorney here in the community. He has been on the side of the Citizens for Normal in a lot of lawsuits against the town of Normal with a couple of things. And he is just a well-known Illinois attorney. He also ran for attorney general here in the state against Tom DeVore in the Republican primary. Now he is taking on this case and he's representing this Illinois pastor, Okay. It looks very bad that Fannie, big fat Fannie Willis, she is indicting this Illinois pastor. It doesn't sound good when you bring charges against a, a well-known, well-liked pastor. His name is Stephen Lee. So the indictment singles out Lee and alleges that he and 18 others unlawfully conspired and tried to conduct some sort of criminal enterprise in Fulton County, Georgia, and elsewhere. And they were trying to overturn the 2020 election. So they've got him on all kinds of things. They're trying to get him on this RICO Act. And the funny thing about this is she's clearly reaching Miss Fannie Willis because David Shostokis, he says, many, if not most, Georgia felony crimes have a basic 2-year statute of limitations. Now, the RICO violation, this is why she's using RICO. And RICO, it's amazing because it was originally made for gangster or like for mob people. So the RICO law was put on the books in 1981 and it was modeled after the federal version Congress enacted to put away mafia bosses who had traditionally evaded criminal prosecution by tying them to the actions of their underlings who carried out crimes on their behalf. So she's trying to go after these people as if they are mafia bosses, gangsters, and as if this is a big criminal enterprise. And really, in Trump's Truth Social post there, he says exactly what this is. It was a group of people and they were trying to fight the riggers, the people who were rigging the election. And these are the good people. These are the people who were advocating for things like double signature verification. When you go in to vote, there should be 2 election judges there who check your name, your signature. And there should be 2 people who verify that. Anyway, so yeah, so they're going after them with the RICO Act, and the RICO Act, like I said, has a 5-year statute of limitations. So they're trying to shoehorn things into RICO that would normally not have had the statute to, would have been past the statute of limitations. So things that were normally outside of the statute, they're trying to loop that into RICO because RICO, there's a 5-year statute of limitations. And the reason they're doing that, we're well over November 2020. We're 2 years past November 2020. So she's trying to loop all this into RICO because it has a longer statute of limitations. So David Stokas representing Stephen Lee. Stephen Lee, great guy. You look at the credentials on this guy and you start to realize, wow, she is really reaching here. This guy, he was like NCIS special agent. He was a police chaplain in New York City. He served as a police officer in California. He's a pastor. Like, come on. And this all has to do with Ruby Freeman. And I watched the video again, and if you're watching online, you can see me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble. I'm there. I'm going to share this with you, and you can see it. I'm not gonna. It has no audio to it or anything like that, so you can literally just only see it on the stream. What's saying is he
braids at about 8:22 a.m. in the morning.
out
So
of
she
box,
put that table there.
and
So the same
she
person who's staying
ran
behind
the
now, the same
same
person who
ballot. She
cleared the
takes out
place
a
out
box
under the
with
pretense
all
that
of
we're
these
going to
ballots
stop
in there,
counting
and she
is the
runs it
person
through
who
the
put the table
tabulator
there
multiple times. It's clear as
at
day on video.
8:22 in the morning.
It's surveillance footage.
Yeah, I saw
And,
4
of course, this
suitcases come
video
out from
went
underneath the
viral,
table.
and Stephen Lee, he's being indicted over his involvement, revolving his
Yeah,
efforts
upper
to
right hand, you see the
contact this
gentleman in
woman
the
who's
red.
seen running these
So he just
ballots
pulled
through the
one out.
tabulator multiple times. And he goes to her door, goes to her neighbor's door, and he said that,
So what are these ballots doing there separate from all the other ballots?
I mean,
And
she's
why are they only
going
counting them whenever
viral.
the place is
I'm a
cleared out with no
pastor. I wanted
witnesses?
to talk to her. Plus, I wanted to get
Is the question.
some truth about what's going on here.
So
And you can see
these
Stephen Lee
machines
in
can
his car.
process
He wasn't
about 3,000
unarmed.
ballots an
He
hour.
wasn't threatening
You have
anybody. He just made a phone
multiple
call
machines
and he
there,
knocked on a couple of
and
doors.
they're there for 2
And
hours.
in the
So you
body
do the
cam footage,
math.
so she calls the
How
police
many
after
ballots
he
went through
knocks
those
on the
machines in
door.
those 2 hours when there was no one there to
Her
supervise, to be
neighbor, and then I
present,
think he
consistent
knocked on
with your
her door,
statutes and
and he goes
rules
out to his car and
to
he sits in
supervise the
his parked car,
tabulation?
and the police show
We
up.
believe
And the police body cam footage shows where he's talking to the cops and he's like, "Look, I'm a faith leader. I'm a pastor and I'm working with folks who are trying to help Ruby out." And he also said, "I want to get to the bottom of this. I want to get some truth." And he wasn't harassing her. It was a simple knock at the door. It was a simple knock at the door. And they're going after him for that. And here's the thing, and this is important, and then I got to take a quick break. Throughout the indictment, there's 167 mentions, not just in his case, Stephen Lee, but in everybody's case who is charged with this RICO Act. They refer to these criminal or to these actions. So the RICO Act says that you have to have 2 criminal acts committed to further your enterprise, your criminal enterprise. And there's 40 different criminal actions defined in the, and I keep calling it the RICO Act. It really stands for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. That's what that stands for. And there's 40 different criminal acts defined in this RICO Act that you have to be, or that you have had to commit in order to be in violation of that RICO Act. And what's funny is the language here. In the indictment, they refer to Stephen Lee and others in the indictment, the 18 others, their actions as quote overt actions. So they themselves admit that these are not criminal acts. They're trying to say that these overt actions, like knocking on a door, calling somebody, that these furthered the criminal enterprise or that these were in some way criminal. They're not criminal, and you can't redefine the RICO Act that's already on the books. Um, but who knows? Probably next year they're going to try to change the RICO Act to include overt acts because break a law, change the law. That's, the way it goes. All right, folks, we are going to be back in just a little bit. I am live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Rumble. It's Friday. We're going to be back. I did go out to the Illinois State Fair yesterday for Republican Day. I've got some audio of interviews I conducted, one with Thomas DeVore. We talked a lot about the gun ban, the assault weapons ban that the Illinois Supreme Court uh, upheld and said was constitutional. It was not constitutional. Now, we take a break. We're coming back and we'll be talking with Tom DeVore. Morning. How are ya? Now, I didn't get a chance to ask Tom DeVore this question, and I should have. So, Tom DeVore and Dan Calkins, there's a lot of beef between them, and I see both sides, to be honest with you. I do see where, maybe it would have, and I'm not an attorney, so I don't know if it would have been. Tom says, yes, you have to argue both of these arguments before the court in order for it to be effective. Now, what am I talking about? There's two legal arguments, and they all came from Thomas DeVore. Dan Calkins asked Tom, hey, can I have one of these legal arguments and kind of go through my own case and take my own case to the Illinois Supreme Court? And he said, go ahead. And he actually says that in the interview, right, with me. Now, one thing that Dan argued was that there was no equal protection under the law because what the so-called assault weapons ban in the state of Illinois does, it says that, hey, uh, normal card holders are uh, are subject to this law, but law enforcement is not subject to this law. Like they don't have to abide by this law. They can have their high capacity magazines. Law enforcement can. So that's wrong. That's called, no equal protection under the law. And um, that's what Dan Calkins was arguing. But there's a whole other side to Tom DeVore's case, which he's arguing himself. And he gives us updates here in this upcoming interview about uh, where his case is at and what he's got to do to get that case heard. But there's a whole other side of his legal argument where the state of Illinois, like the state house, the legislators, they passed this in the dead of night, 3 a.m. There were no procedural readings for this, and they didn't go through the right procedure to pass this law. So not only is the law wrong in that it doesn't provide equal protection under the law because it exempts a certain class of citizens, law enforcement, from this assault weapons ban. They get to have high capacity magazines, but you, the average FOID card holder, do not get to have those high capacity magazines. Um, so there's that, and that's what Dan Calkins brought before the Illinois Supreme Court. But he did not bring the procedural argument like, hey, this wasn't even passed correctly before the Illinois Supreme Court. Now, in this interview, you're going to hear coming up in a bit, Tom DeVore goes into how, that those two legal arguments should have been argued together. One thing I didn't get to ask Tom in this interview is, hey, would it have mattered? Like, really? Because the Illinois Supreme Court, it's 5-2. I feel like if you were to bring some sort of ham sandwich, they would vote with the liberals, some sort of, any kind of law that the Democrats bring forward from Governor J.B. Pritzker, Kwame Raoul, any kind of law that they craft in the state of Illinois, no matter how unconstitutional it is, and believe me, there's a lot of them, the Safety Act, this law now with the pregnancy resource centers, and how they're trying to say that, hey, if we think that you're doing something deceptive, then we're going to fine you $50,000 or something like that. That's completely blatantly unconstitutional because they're violating the First Amendment. And don't take my word for it. Governor J.B. Pritzker said they have the right to free speech, but they don't have the right to lie. Free speech does protect lying. Okay, free speech is protected speech. You can lie. The government cannot force you to tell the truth because they are not the purveyors of truth. There is no way for them to truly know the truth because there is one truth and God knows the truth. The truth. There is one truth and God knows the truth. There is no true way for a human being to understand what's true and what's not true because they are not the purveyors of truth. Um, our little tiny human brains can't do it. Okay, so Governor J.B. Pritzker, he's going after the First Amendment. He's going after free speech in that case with the pregnancy resource centers. So there's a lot of unconstitutional laws out there that have been drafted by Governor J.B. Pritzker and his little acolyte minions, Kwame Raoul, Chris Welch, right? They're all pushing out these unconstitutional laws. And I feel like anything that they upheld the Safety Act. They're going to uphold the pregnancy resource law, the deceptive practice law. You know they will because it is a woke, corrupt Illinois Supreme Court. If you bring before anything that the Dems have crafted, any kind of law, they are going to side with the Democrats every single time. The 2 Illinois justices, they've gotten $1 million each from Governor J.B. Pritzker in campaign donations. Do you think they're gonna give that up? Do you think that they're beholden to somebody? Yeah, I would think so. Anybody who gives me $1 million, I'm gonna like a lot. Okay? So, yeah, I just wanted to make that clear, that look, Tom, Dan, this whole drama, it's like, guys, whatever the Illinois Supreme Court hears on behalf of the Democrats, they're going to side with the Democrats uh, every single time. Doesn't matter. We have no true justice system in the state of Illinois. Maui. Ooh, this is not good. And I'm sorry, when somebody resigns like this, my eyebrows start to raise, and I'm like, why are you resigning? And why are you lying about why you're resigning? So, the Maui Emergency Management Administrator, this is a top guy here, he's resigning after he chose not to sound the sirens. So this story gets wilder and wilder. We've now found out that the power company, Hawaii Energy, they were all focused on creating they were the first state. They were wanting to become the first state that did all renewable energy, that their electric was going to operate off of solar and wind. That was what they were working on, and they were trying to get that infrastructure put in place. So this is another example of failing complex systems. You see it with air travel, you see it with train derailments, those have spiked up. It's the failing of complex systems. And they tried to shift over to wind and solar entirely. They were going to be the first state to do this. So they sacrificed a lot, and they didn't maintain their power lines. They didn't think about removing the foliage, and I was right about that. I told you that they weren't removing the foliage, they weren't removing the dry brush, they weren't doing controlled burns like they should have been doing, because the liberals, they hate controlled burns, and they're not actual environmentalists like us conservatives are, because oh, they hate touching grass and they live inside and they're pasty white and they don't like fresh air. Okay. So they're not true environmentalists. They can never truly be conservative environmentalists because they don't care about what God gave them, which is the earth, because they're a bunch of wild atheists. Sorry. Went way off the rails there, but it grinds my gears, folks, when people are like, "Yeah, aren't you for green energy?" Yeah, way more than that guy over there eating a bag of Funyuns and fudge rounds inside watching his video games and his porn. Okay, yeah, I am for the planet because I actually go outside. Okay, so yes, I'm for the planet. But they were neglecting the foliage. They were neglecting the brush that was building up, the dried trees, the dead trees, and they weren't doing controlled burns. They also were neglecting the basic infrastructure of their power lines because they were working towards going all in on this renewable energy, solar and wind. So, failing complex systems. And they did not de-energize those power lines, although they were given several warnings by the weather services out there. And they said, hey, de-energize those power lines now because we have favorable conditions for a wildfire. They ignored that. The people of Maui then started to burn alive. Children, we're looking at this, over 1,000 people missing. I've got numbers today. I think it's 110. That toll is continuing to rise. We'll have no idea how many people have died in this for quite some time. And they're burning alive. Now, the people who remain alive are sifting through the cinders, the ashes, trying to build their communities, trying to see what's left of their community. And This is just another failure on behalf of Hawaii and government. The Maui Emergency Management Administrator resigned after choosing not to sound the sirens as the wildfire raged. So he resigns, and there is a siren that he should have uh, sounded. Now, he justified not sounding these sirens because he said that they were intended for tsunamis, not wildfires. And he mentioned that the public was accustomed to seeking higher ground during the siren alerts. And he was worried that the people would go mountainside. See, I don't think that the people are that stupid. I'm sure they would have seen the plume of smoke and they would have figured out, hey, we got to get into the ocean now. And that's ultimately what they had to do is go out into the ocean to avoid getting burned because the wildfires were that bad. The governor and the mayor, they stood behind this guy. What an idiot. The sirens would have helped people, but you failed. You failed. And I don't know what your intention was here, but I don't know if that's the greatest response because they're normally intended for tsunamis. No, they're emergency sirens. Sound the emergency sirens, dude. The governor and the mayor, they stuck by this guy's side and they supported his response. And they said, you know what? Stop saying he failed at his job. The governor acknowledged that his own response upon hearing the sirens would have involved anticipating a tsunami. So the governor went as far as to say there that, hey, had I heard the sirens, I would have thought a tsunami was coming. So this is what the mayor says. He says, given the gravity of the crisis we're facing, my team and I will be placing somebody in this key position, the emergency management administrator, as quickly as possible. And I look forward to making that announcement soon. Failing complex systems. That's all I've got to say. And he expressed no regrets for this decision that he made to not activate those warning sirens as the wildfire scorched the entire town, uh, the entire island. So, yeah, it's a shame. It's a big shame that that happened, and it's concerning for me to see this where he's resigning now, and now he's lying about his resignation because come on, after something like that, you're resigning in disgrace, okay? And you are going out, and we are not letting you live this down, dude. But he's trying to say that his resignation is based on his own personal health reasons. Give me a break. All right, I do want to take a quick break, but we are going to come back and I promised you this interview because I was out at the Illinois State Fair yesterday. That's huge. I've always gone to Republican Day, and that's where I was yesterday. I've always gone to Republican Day. I've never really gone inside of the Illinois State Fair, but in order to get to Republican Day this year, I had to go and kind of get inside and go inside the actual fair. And it's like Disney World. That thing is huge. And what really peeved me off, taxpayer money paying for things like the comptroller's tent, this huge tent, JB's tent, and all of these different offices in Springfield, these government officials, they had their own tents out at the Illinois State Fair, and they're huge and they're staffed. And I'm just thinking to myself, my God. So I did talk to Tom DeVore about that assault weapons ban that was upheld by the shady, I'll say that, Illinois Supreme Court. So we talked about that, some of the drama between State Representative Dan Calkins' case and Tom DeVore's case and how they differ. So we'll be back. This is the Morning Buzz. Happy Friday. Hey, if you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. Thanks so much for tuning in. I do appreciate that. Yeah, what's going on in Maui? I mean, there's so many different things that are concerning here for me because what's going on in Maui, there have been several things that I've just raised my eyebrows at. And, the ignorance is astounding. If not ignorance, then intentional. And you're probably like, what? Yes. That is my, not, I mean, the ignorance is so blatant that one has to begin to question how. How could you be so stupid? They didn't sound the warning sirens. They um, didn't de-electrify those power lines because the government was forcing, via mandate, state law, for this power company to switch over to renewable energy or whatever, wind, solar, to electrify or to um, get their power lines to run on just wind and solar. And they were so focused on that that they failed to maintain the actual power lines to where they couldn't actually de-electrify them when they were told several times by the Weather Service, hey, you have to de-electrify these power lines. They couldn't do it because they didn't maintain the power lines. And I mean, there's a lot there. There's a class action lawsuit against Hawaii Energy. 95% of the island gets their energy from this power company. I mean, there's so much there where, and not to mention 3 months ago, there was this zoning code that they wanted to change, and then all of a sudden there's this huge fire, and now that zoning code doesn't really exist anymore. The state is looking to acquire the land. There's a lot of red flags here, and something does not smell right. If it wasn't blatant ignorance, then what was it? And if it was blatant ignorance, then we need to have a big talking to all of those people involved, because we're looking at death tolls 110 today. It's going to rise, 1,000 people missing, and there's this growing worry, and we're all starting to believe that there's a significant portion of deceased children from these fires because they were home due to the school closures. So school closed up, and their parents were at work. So they might have burned alive at home because children aren't smart enough. They don't know how to react in those situations. They didn't get out of the house, and they didn't go towards the ocean. The people who went into the ocean survived. There were people who were going into the ocean to avoid being burned alive. So uh, all of these people, for what their ignorance, they should be cuffed. If I were to be that ignorant in a job and in a role that requires the safety of others and providing conditions that allow me to be safe, that's the entire purpose of government. Hey, please set the conditions up to where I can be safe and keep myself safe. You need to make sure that there are conditions met that allow me to keep myself safe. That means not taking our guns away. That means sounding the siren to let me know when something bad is going to happen, when some sort of natural disaster is going to happen. You should have sounded those sirens, dude. You should have sounded those sirens. Um, I don't know. Yeah, I think that these people should be cuffed, and they're responsible for the death of possibly 1,000 people. So we are going to be coming back. There is an Illinois law that you have to know about. We're back for the radio, friends. Let's take a listen. State 4, Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Joining me, Tom DeVore. You know him, you love him. And I've got to ask, so your case is still in the state level. It's still in the state stages. I know Dan Calkins' case, there's a lot of controversy there. I was hoping to talk to you about where your case is going, and it's with the state still, right? And when is the court date for when it goes before the Illinois Supreme Court?
Well, just recently, within the last couple of days, the Effingham County judge dismissed our case, citing Dan Calkins' case as precedent, saying that because of that ruling, our case should be dismissed. I disagree with that, and we're going to file a motion to reconsider, saying that, in fact, what the Supreme Court said in the Calkins case is that Dan lost because he failed to satisfy his burden of proof because he didn't do any discovery. He didn't present any facts to the court. And so that doesn't foreclose us from being able to prove those facts to the court. So we're going to file a request to reconsider in Effingham, and if that's not successful, then we'll go on to the appellate court and then the Illinois Supreme Court. Another issue was to the procedural problems with the 3 readings clause that we raised that Mr. Calkins also failed to preserve and take to the Supreme Court. We still have that argument as well, and we'll be presenting both of those in the near future.
So would you present Dan Calkins like his, well, it was really your argument to begin with, right? Dan Calkins took it and asked you if it was cool to run with it, right? But why not do the procedural? So yours is like, okay, we're going to go after the procedure. It was 3 a.m. in the morning when all of this was passed. They didn't do the 3 readings like they were supposed to for this so-called assault weapons ban. Now, he took the part where police officers are exempt from the law. So he was kind of arguing the equal protection under the law. Arguing those together, is that more beneficial than arguing it separate?
It's necessary, not just more beneficial, because getting the 3 readings procedural clause in front of the Supreme Court was absolutely possible if Dan would have just done it. And if you recall, 2 of the justices of the Supreme Court actually raised it in their dissent that issue should have been brought forth, and yet Dan chose not to do it. As to his equal protection argument that he lost, I told him that he was going to lose that argument.
Because
he didn't have any discovery. And what the court said is that if you want to win an equal protection argument, you have to prove to us that you as the plaintiffs are similar to the exempt classes. How are you the same? And you have to have facts to prove that. You can't just say we're the same. You have to show that you're the same. And the court said you didn't do that because you didn't have any discovery, you didn't have any facts. And so our attempt is to actually have discovery and have facts to show that we are the same. We're not any different. And again, we should have the opportunity to do that, and that's what we're going to continue to argue.
Okay, and then it's up to the Effingham County judge, right? And then it goes to the appeals, then it goes to the Illinois Supreme Court. So you got to appeal before the Effingham County judge who was like, well, Dan Calkins, he already got shot down, so I'm not hearing the case, right?
We have to ask him to reconsider that decision. Okay. And if he refuses, then we go to the appellate court and then potentially to the Supreme Court.
Okay. Have you taken a peek at the indictment for Donald J. Trump down in Fulton County? Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I had a question about, I don't know if you saw, it's the RICO Act. And the RICO Act down in Georgia, it's the state law. And it says that you need 2 criminal provisions in order to be or 2 criminal acts in order to be in violation of that act. But throughout the indictment, it says overt act. As an attorney, can you tell me what's the difference between a criminal act and an overt act? And are there specific definitions under the law?
No, I mean, to try to say it was overt, they're presuming that criminality was involved in that, right? And so, I've read that from a cursory manner. It appears to be pretty political to me, the way that they've, glossed that over and the timing of it, et cetera. So, I mean, there's some serious accusations in there, but I think President Trump's got some pretty good constitutional defenses to that he was trying to pursue his rights to defend his political campaign against what he thought was unlawful conduct in that state. And so it's going to be an interesting case to watch. And I'm not so sure whether collectively all of that activity they're talking about, you could argue it's just one act. It was just a bunch of different steps regarding the same issue. So we'll see how that goes.
Okay. And then today's Republican Day. Are you planning on running for anything in 2024? Illinois Attorney General, anything like that?
No, I'm not. Well, again, Illinois Attorney General won't be until 26, but I'm not planning on running for anything. I mean, Republicans in Illinois have a lot of work to do at the grassroots level and at the bottom level to be able to ever be institutionally in a position to win elections. I'm here at this event today just because I like to listen, but there's a bunch of rah, yay stuff to try to make people feel good. There's nothing wrong with that, but I haven't heard one thing from any politician in the Republican Party today that really talks about how you're going to win elections. And so in the background, I'm doing a lot of work right now that people will see in the months to come. How do we really win elections in Illinois as Republicans? Which takes a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, and not a lot of talking on a stage. So I'm just watching.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Nice. Well, folks, that was Tom DeVore at the Illinois State Fair, our interview. I knew that I had to share that with you, and there were a lot of things that Tom discussed. One thing that I didn't get a chance to uh, ask him was, "Hey, what do you think about the Illinois Supreme Court?" And I think he kind of touched on it. And I'm sure if I were to ask Tom this, I would understand his answer. The Illinois Supreme Court, um, and I don't think that he's really allowed to talk about this, where their campaign contributions, there were $1 million given to both Mary Kay O'Brien, Elizabeth Rockford, and they are uh, the campaign maxed out. Like, their campaign donations were maxed out by Governor J.B. Pritzker. J.B. Pritzker gave them that money. I feel like if you were to bring anything before that Supreme Court, and we've kind of already seen it, the Safety Act upheld this so-called assault weapons ban. It's really just a high capacity magazine, not even really high capacity. It's 17 rounds. Like, that's pretty basic. In fact, most police officers have 17 rounds, which is why Governor J.B. Pritzker and the legislator, they had to write in an exemption for law enforcement, because there's so many guns that are over 17 rounds that law enforcement officers have. And I feel like if you were to bring anything before that Supreme Court, it really doesn't matter who brought it forward. Dan, Tom, is is it even worth it? 5-2, right? In this case, it was 4-3. Um, but the third, Mary Kay O'Brien, you read her dissension and you read why she dissented. It was because the bill didn't go far enough. The law didn't go far enough. She said that we should ban high capacity magazines, so-called high capacity magazines, for both police officers and average Void card holders. Like, she was as far left as they come. She goes, no. She goes, nobody should have these kinds of guns, not even law enforcement. So there you have it. I don't think that this assault weapons ban, if it were to be drafted in any other kind of way, if it was Dan, if it was Tom, if there were both legal arguments presented, if there was just the one versus the other, I don't think it really matters at the end of the day, because like Tom DeVore said at the end there are things in Illinois that are so broken, we can't even win in these lawsuits at the Illinois Supreme Court level as Republicans and as really citizens, because there has been favorable conditions for the elitists, and they are breaking the rules, they're changing the rules, and we can't keep up. So on the other side, this kind of pertains to that kind of pertains to my point there, that this viral sensation, Oliver Anthony with Richmond North of Richmond, that song, he's defying all these media attacks, and he's calling for Americans to unite. Yeah, I don't think we can win elections if we are constantly trying to sue the governor for his unconstitutional mandates, his unconstitutional laws. There's so many of them: the Safety Act, the Pregnancy Resource Bill, where they can come in and say that, hey, you're doing deceptive practices, and we're going to fine you $50,000, but we're going to deem it deceptive. So there's no true definition. It's just, if we deem it deceptive, then we're going to shut you down. We're going to fine you out the wazoo, and you are just going to shut up and take it, because you have no freedom of speech. You have no freedom of religion. You have no freedom of political speech in this state. And this brings me to another law that we're going to get to here in the 7 o'clock hour. It's called an anti-doxing bill. And this was signed into law, and this is the latest attack on your free speech. And you really need to pay attention here in the 7 o'clock hour. I am paying attention, and I'm kind of worried, being that I I do what I do. Um, under this law, I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue to do what I do. Um, Governor J.B. Pritzker recently signed what's called the Illinois Civil Liberty or Illinois Civil Liability for Doxing Act. That's what this act is called. And um, he he wasn't alone in all of this. And, I've got to try to find the Republicans who voted for this, and believe me, I will. But it passed with both parties, both in the House and Senate. So there were Republicans who voted yes for this legislation. It's unconstitutional legislation. It's blatantly misguided. You're now at risk of liability under this law for writing or sharing in any matter, even truthful in any manner, truthful, simple facts. The law will stifle constitutionally protected speech, and it is going to be used as a tool for political abuse. That's what this law is going to do. This new law lets those who are doxxed, and I don't like doxing. Believe me, I don't like it, and I think that it should be illegal. But this is a very broad uh, language, very broad language, and they did a terrible job at writing this legislation. The new law lets those who are doxxed bring lawsuits for damages against the doxer. Um, and they are um, subject to certain broad, vague requirements. I'm going to describe these. So, doxing, if you don't know what that is, it's commonly used in publication, so print, usually on the internet, where somebody takes your personal information and you post it. And it's about somebody's identity or whereabouts with the intent of harassing, shaming, or taking revenge on that person. Okay, that's doxing, and you want harm to come to them. That's 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 what this law does. Now, that's not the definition under this new law. The law is very broad, goes far beyond the malicious conduct normally associated with doxing. So if you just print anything about anybody, then you're going to be held liable for doxing, and you could be fined. You could possibly, I mean, the punishments. I'm not too clear on those, but I mean, you're going to be punished. So I will be getting to that here coming up in just a bit in the 7 o'clock hour. You're going to want to listen up to that, because if you post anything on Facebook at all, you might be subject to this law. You might be held liable under this law. It's Friday. Good morning. Yes, I was out at the Illinois State Fair. Guys, I don't know if I'm going to go to the Fairbury Fair. I'm going to have to see today. I'll see what time I get out of work, but I'll let y'all know if I go to the Fairbury Fair today. John, thanks so much for texting in and asking if I was going. I hope you have a great time at the Fairbury Fair. I usually go, and I love the folks out in Fairbury. They're pretty cool people, and Fairbury is a great place. And I'm sure their fair is awesome. I went to the Illinois State Fair. I've never been actually inside of the fair before. I usually just go to Republican Day, and it's kind of on the outside. It's right there on the director's lawn. I listen to a lot of the speakers, and yeah, Tom DeVore is right. It was just a bunch of rah, rah, rah. What really disappointed me was that we had the Illinois Republican Don Tracy. He's the leader of the party, and nobody made mention of the indictments against former president who's Republican and the leader of the Republican Party. Nobody made mention of that. And that was truly disappointing, because we are in banana republic type times, and we need to really start to fight back and fix this state, because I'll tell you about this law coming up in just a little bit. I'm worried about my job. I'm worried about, because what this law does, I could get in trouble for just simply posting things that are truthful and simple fact. I'm now at risk of liability under the law for writing or sharing in any manner, even in a truthful manner, simple facts. If I just post. So Governor J.B. Pritzker, he signed this bill into law. It's called the Illinois Civil Liability and Doxing Act. And don't blame just JB, because Republicans, and I've got to find out who, signed this misguided, unconstitutional legislation. It passed both the House and the Senate, and a lot of Republicans were behind this as well. So you're at risk of liability. And this new law lets those who are doxxed bring forward lawsuits for damages against the doxer. And you're subject to some very broad punishments. Eh, like even the punishments are kind of like, whoa, what? So what exactly am I going to face if I'm a so-called doxer? So doxing is commonly used to mean publication, usually on the internet, of somebody's personal information and individual identity, or like their address or something, their whereabouts, and you are intending to do that. So either you yourself or other people on the internet will go there, harass them, and you are doing this with the intent of harassing them, shaming them, and taking revenge on that person. That's what doxing is, and it's evil. Doxing is bad. I'm not saying that doxing isn't bad. What this law does, though, it's way, way broad, and it goes far beyond the malicious conduct normally associated with doxing. So, just for example, if you write on social media, hey, look at Sam Smith's Facebook page. He says he couldn't care less about the victims of Highland Park, the mass murderer, this mass murdering that happened in Highland Park on July 4th, and that the right to own assault weapons is God given. So, in that example, you would be doxing under this new law. Even if you say, hey, look at this Facebook page, look at his name. This is Sam Smith, and this is what he says. So, if you share something about somebody's name and what they think, then you are going to be held, or possibly could be held under, or liable under this new law for doxing, and that's able to be punished. You can be punished under the law, charged, convicted, right? So, um, another example, you could publish on the internet the name of 3 Illinois lawmakers with the most extreme views on abortion. So if I publish their names and I say, hey, these people are the most extreme on abortion in the state legislature, and I provide reasons why, and I could tell you the truth, right? Like these people have, or for Sharon Chung, right? She is for the parental consent, the removal of the Parental Consent Act, where 12-year-old girls had to get permission from their parents in order to get abortion. If I were to print on social media that Sharon Chung was against the parental consent law that was uh, taken out of the Illinois state legislature. Now, 12-year-old girls can go get an abortion in the state of Illinois without the consent of their parents, and the abortion provider doesn't have to inform the parents that the kid got an abortion that happened here in the state of Illinois. If I say that Sharon Chung is for that, then I could be held liable. Yeah, that is a sick bill. And there's lots of things that I could go through when it comes to this new bill. First, the law says that you have to publish the doxed person's personal identifiable information without their consent. Um, but that's like nothing at all. So, publishing under the new law means circulating information in any manner. That's what publishing is. So, it really doesn't matter if it's in print or you publish it, or if you stand on the street corner and say somebody's name, like JB Pritzker is gonna be, somewhere. If you are on the street corner publishing that, I mean, that's technically publishing under the law. And personally identifiable information means as little as somebody's name in combination with their education, gender, email address, and a whole list of other things. It need not to be something confidential or highly personal. So I could publish JB Pritzker's office phone number, and maybe I'll be liable under the new law for that. Who knows? For doxing, or one of these Illinois legislatures, right? If I post their phone numbers and their emails and I say, hey, email your state representatives about this bill, then you could be held liable for doxing. Second, to be liable, the new law says that you have to publish the information, quote, with the intent to be used to harm or harass. Now, that's not much protection against liability because if you need not have anything to do with physical harm and intent to cause some level of harm is common. So, this is a Wire Points article. I'm reading it. When you criticize or ridicule somebody on the internet, aren't you hoping that they suffer in some sort of manner? So, this isn't that usually the whole point of it, right? The whole point of me telling you that Sharon Chung is uh, pro or is against parental consent in the state of Illinois. The whole reason why I'm doing that is so that way that she loses votes. So is that considered harming or harassing her? It doesn't need to be physical harm. It doesn't need to be anything like that. It's just harm in general. So it's very broad. Um, yeah, this bill is bad. If you're watching right now, go ahead and smash that like button. We'll be back in just a minute. So, in response to the latest indictment in Georgia, Donald Trump, he announced that he's going to be holding a press conference on Monday. And this is what he said on Truth Social: "A large, complex, detailed, but irrefutable, totally irrefutable report on the presidential election fraud, which took place in Georgia, is almost complete and will be presented at a major news conference at 11 a.m. on Monday next week in Bedminster, New Jersey. Based on the results of this conclusive report, all charges should be dropped against me and others. There will be a complete, huge exoneration. They never went after those who rigged the election. They only went after those who fought to find the riggers." That's Donald Trump on Truth Social. And he says the word riggers, right? And then the media is saying that's racist. So let's add the word riggers to the growing list of things that the media is claiming to be racist. Let's see. Coffee is racist. Camping is racist. Hot weather is racist. Being tidy is racist. Waking up early is racist. Exercising, gardening, bicycling, fresh air. And yeah. So what else does the media deem racist? Go ahead and throw that into the comment section. I'm live on YouTube. The Morning Buzz is live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble every morning, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. And be sure to text in. What do you think the media, or what name another thing that the media claims is racist? Go ahead. Name another thing. Text in at 309-451-9299. Now, let's talk about this viral sensation, Oliver Anthony, defying the media attacks against him. He's calling for Americans to unite. We are going to be talking about that. And then a little bit later, Chris Pratt wrecking the haters with this hilarious, it's a pre-apology. Now, I'm taking it's a flashback because he wrote this back in 2015. Now it's making its rounds because people have been trying to cancel Chris Pratt because he is very outspoken about his faith and how Jesus and he has been after him and has been moving in his life, and he's very outspoken about that. Chris Pratt is, and he even spoke at the LA Dodger Stadium this year for Christian Family Day, and he wrote a pre-apology years ago, and it's kind of making its rounds, and I think it's just hilarious because who knows? We might all have to write a pre-apology to these woke mobsters because they might try to cancel you in the future. So maybe today on your lunch break, write a pre-apology on your Facebook page to make sure that people don't come after you for uh, God knows what in the future. Okay, so this viral singer-songwriter, Oliver Anthony. Let's take a listen to his song. It is Friday. I love it. I mean, over 1 million views on YouTube at this point. Here we go.
Drag back home and drown my troubles away. Shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't, and it's taxed to no end.
Oliver Anthony. That's the song. If you haven't heard it, then you're living under a rock, folks. But he's viral, and he's taking time to reflect over the past few weeks with a call for Americans to unite. So his breakthrough hit, Richmond, North of Richmond, has over 11 million views on YouTube, and it just continues to climb. And I do want to get to Oliver Anthony's message in a minute, but I have to address the climbing attacks from these corporate journalismers, the media attacks he's facing. Um, you know, They have to attack him because conservatives are really enjoying something, and these corporate journalismers, they have to find an excuse to dump on it. Only the corporate journalismers, they have had their work cut out for them because Oliver Anthony does not have a very long social media history. He just joined X, formerly known as Twitter, this past week, and they're getting desperate. So the most popular attack from the corporate journalismers is this one. But he's and they're I love the leftists. They're gonna sit there and call you a conspiracy theorist. These people are conspiracy theorists and they're paranoid freaks. They're saying that he's not really a grassroots sensation because the guy who tweeted out the song and tweeted about Oliver Anthony has quite the following. And you are only an overnight success. Okay. This is what the corporate journalismers think. They think that this is impossible. Like, how could this guy, without the help of some sort of record deal or PR contacts, how could he become so famous? I thought you had to be discovered in some sort of liberal coffee shop in this big blue city. And, the PR team has to come in and say nice things about you in order to get famous and to really just take off. Sorry, the whole PR team, the whole music team thing, that's not a thing anymore. Like, we all have social media accounts, and we all decided to make this guy famous. The people made this guy famous. The people gave him 11 million views on YouTube. So here's just a clip from the corporate journalismers. Here's what they're saying. Still, these politicians and conservative pundits have helped Anthony rise from obscure singer-songwriter to the darling of the right in record time, sparking questions over how authentically viral his rise has been. So they're questioning the authenticity of him being viral. These people have nothing, and they're really trying. They're grasping at straws. So they continue on Twitter. Jason Howerton, who advertises himself on LinkedIn as having helped grow media companies and political influencers grow their social media footprint exponentially, has been a major proponent of Anthony's work. Sharing the musician's life story in a thread, offering to finance an album, which the right wing country singer, which is amazing that they're calling him right wing, or John Rich. John Rich is not right wing; he's just a conservative, right? So they're saying that right wing country singer John Rich apparently agreed to produce, and announcing the musician had just joined Twitter. It does feel remarkable that Oliver Anthony, decided to share his life story on YouTube a day before releasing a video that went viral. So they're like, they think that it's some sort of conspiracy or some sort of like, there's no way he could have gone viral. This song is, not that good. There's no way he could have gone viral. There's a plot afoot. Uh, so that's their attack on him. And I love when you look up Oliver Anthony on Wikipedia, they say that the song's lyrics revolve around common right wing talking points such as inflation, high taxes, and child trafficking. When did these become right wing talking points? These are just talking points that are just out there. The people talk about taxes, the people talk about inflation. People should be talking about child trafficking. Like that, this is not so when wasn't exactly did did inflation become a right wing talking point? The reasons Anthony's song really resonates with people, and people need to understand this, is that he's just repeating the stuff that we think back to us. The stuff that we believe, he's just repeating it back, and he's doing it in a passionate way, and he's saying with power in his voice, and nothing was overproduced. It was just a guy with his guitar and a microphone, and that's it. If that doesn't move you, you don't have a soul, or you're a corporate journalismer, and I repeat myself in that sentence. You don't have a soul. You're a corporate journalismer. Okay. So Oliver Anthony, he's out there. A lengthy statement on Twitter. I want to share that with you here on the Morning Buzz. As always, you guys can see me live in studio, Facebook, Rumble, Twitter. here we go, Oliver Anthony, and he took to social media and he's calling for Americans to unite around this song.
blown. And I mean, hell, we signed and took pictures a good 4 hours after the show. And it wasn't like people just came up and shook my hand. They come up and they told me about the battles they've been dealing with, depression and suicide and money. And, you know, those are real problems. This song is not something that it's not like it's some masterpiece I've created. It's the masterpiece and the emotions of the song. It already exists within you. Sometimes it just takes the right song coming along to let those out. But my question to you is, when Oliver Anthony's long gone and forgotten about, what can you do in your own life to maintain this energy, this positivity, this unity that I see among people like I've never seen before? What are the next steps to make life better for people? What can you do for your neighbor? There used to be such a strong sense of community in this country. And you still see it a lot in small town America, but even there it's dying out.
Wow. What can you do? I'm thinking about JFK, you know, think not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And this is definitely, I mean, just spoken like a guy who doesn't have social media. And it's good for people to go out, touch some grass, talk to your neighbors, talk to your neighbors' kids, talk to your friends, your kids' friends' parents, talk to people, go shop local, support a little league, support your volunteer fire department, support your sheriff's office, your volunteer sheriff's office. Log off once in a while, spend some time talking to people in real life, build the community, go to the prayer today, the tabernacle, or not today, tomorrow, Saturday. Saturday at 10 a.m., there's a back to school prayer. And, you know, there's got to be a sense of community. All of us live in a community or we live in a neighborhood. We've got to start to take care of it. We've got to start to take care of people who live there in these small communities. So, Oliver Anthony, I mean, just an amazing guy. We do have to take a break. I do want to chat a little bit about Chris Pratt. He's simply just one of the greatest Americans that have ever lived. He can't change my mind. One day he's reading scripture. The next day he's vacuuming or vacuum sealing this meat that he killed. So he actually posted to Instagram a while ago that he had killed this deer and he's at his kitchen counter and he's vacuum sealing like some deer meat. I'm like, yeah, go Chris Pratt. So I want to talk about Chris Pratt because there's something that's going around, circulating. It's this apology that he wrote. It's a pre-apology to those who might try to cancel him in the future, and he's just wrecking the haters with this pre-apology, and I think it's hilarious. People have tried to cancel this guy because he's very outspoken about Jesus. So I'll be back. This is the Morning Buzz. Hey, good morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're watching, go ahead and smash that like button. Smash this like button. I heard this morning Trump canceled the press conference. Ooh. I'll have to check that out. That sucks. If that's true. Diane, and I believe it. Also, Diane, if you want to call in, if you're watching right now, if you want to call in and chat with me about, I don't know if you saw the doxing bill and how that got signed into law, but I have a feeling that you are going to really be affected by this because you tend to publish people's names and along with that published. Like you can't even talk about teachers who are openly pushing this critical race theory stuff or gender ideology because that could be considered doxing. Yeah, let me look. I don't know. I'd have to check that out. But yeah, we are going to be getting into the doxing law here in the state of Illinois. It's the latest attack on freedom of speech. Essentially, if you post anybody's name or anything factual about that person, you could be held liable for doxing. Doxing is commonly used to mean publication, usually on the internet, of somebody's personal information, something about them, their whereabouts, with the intent to harass, shame, and take revenge on that person. But according to this new law in Illinois, it's very broad and it goes way before, way beyond the malicious conduct normally associated with doxing. So you don't have to be malicious really. And in some sort of way, all if you're publishing something about somebody, you are kind of meaning to intend some sort of harm. So if I post on social media um, the names of maybe a few Illinois lawmakers who are the most extreme on abortion, along with the reasons why, I could be held liable under this new law. If you write a column that you post on the internet, um, naming certain public school teachers that you think are exponentially bad for promoting critical race theory or gender um, mutilation for minors, right? If you post things about those teachers, um, and you post their names along with the reason why you think that they're bad teachers for promoting critical race theory or promoting gender ideology, then you could be held liable under this law for doxing. Um, the law says that you have to publish a person's personally identifiable information. Now, personally identifiable information means as little as somebody's name, in combination with their education, gender, email, address, a list of other things. Now, like as little as somebody's name, I feel like if you post somebody's like home address, then yes, like that's doxing. But if you are posting somebody's name, that's considered doxing. Second, you could be held liable under the new law if you publish the information with the intent uh, uh, it be used to harm or harass. So, to some degree, you post things about people to intend some sort of mild harm, not like bodily harm or anything like that. Like me, if I'm publishing something about a politician, my intent is for them to not get any more votes. That's the whole point, right? The whole point of me informing you that Chris Coos is a climate activist and he is blowing out this huge development in Uptown Normal, this Uptown South, and he's trying to do all electric. That's really concerning for citizens, and I want people to stand up. That's my whole job as a journalist. In some way, you have to be sort of an activist, um, or at least call attention to government officials acting possibly illegally. Uh, you can't really mandate indirectly. You can't like control people's appliances, ovens, stoves, gas stoves. You can't force people not to have a gas stove in their home, like as government. Okay. And to some degree, yes, I am trying to make sure that this guy doesn't get votes. And under this new law, if I try to make sure somebody doesn't get votes and that's my intention there, then I could be held liable under this law for causing some sort of harm or intent to cause harm. Um, Most importantly, the part about that is that that is definitely against free speech. The United States Supreme Court, they have laid out a stricter standard for free speech. You cannot restrict speech unless you are inciting or producing imminent lawlessness action and is and that speech is likely to incite or produce such an action. So we are going to be back. This is the Morning Buzz. Kat, I heard that the Trump press conference is going to be canceled for Monday. I haven't heard that, but it wouldn't shock me. I wouldn't be surprised if the people, the powers that be, are trying to cancel that press conference. Maybe there's a gag order in place, something like that. That's surrounding the indictment. Donald Trump, he posted on Truth Social that he's going to have this press conference and this is going to completely exonerate him. And he's going to prove that the election was rigged in Fulton County, Georgia. Now, I was telling you earlier this morning about a pastor. here in Illinois that is being indicted alongside Donald Trump. And his involvement revolves around his efforts to try to contact a Georgia election worker. We might know who she is, Ruby Freeman. So Ruby Freeman is known for this video that went viral, and Ruby can be seen on tape running the same ballots through the tabulator multiple times. That's just a fact. This video is irrefutable. Okay, she was running ballots, the same ones, through the tabulator multiple times. And now they're indicting this pastor out of Illinois for going to her house and knocking on the door. Now, he is a Reverend Stephen Lee, and his credentials are lengthy, and he's a good guy. Okay, so he was a cop in California. He was an NCIS special agent. He's a police chaplain in New York City, was a police chaplain. This guy's a good guy. Okay. And he said to this officer that she called the police on him. And he just says to the officer, and you can see this in the body cam footage, because the police officers show up after he knocked on Freeman's door, which isn't a criminal act, I mind you. Like, you can knock on somebody's door. Okay. Guy is not armed. He's not threatening her. He just knocked on her door. And he says, look, I'm a pastor. I'm working with some folks who are trying to help Ruby Freeman out. And I'm also trying to get to some truth about what's going on here. So they're trying to go after him for the RICO Act. And they're saying that he committed some overt acts, and that makes him in violation of this RICO Act, which is wrong, because in order to be in violation of the RICO Act, you have to do some sort of criminal action. And there's 40 different criminal actions listed under the Racketeer Influenced and Corruption Organization Act. That's the RICO Act. And they said that he committed overt acts. Well, overt act is not the same as criminal act. So I don't know. They're trying to shoehorn a lot of things into this RICO Act, because the RICO Act, unlike other felony crimes in the state of Georgia, has a 5-year statute of limitations in comparison to 2-year statute of limitations. So obviously we're well past November 2020 when all of this action happened, when the election happened. So what they're trying to do is hold them liable under the RICO Act, because the statute of limitations for a lot of these so-called felony crimes, it's over the statute of limitations. So yeah, I'd have to do some digging, but that press conference might be canceled, folks. I'll try to dig and find that out. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Chris Pratt. So Chris Pratt, he made an apology, a pre-apology, if you will, some time ago in 2015. Good old Chris Pratt. I love this guy. He'll say something to offend. He knows that he'll probably say something to offend these woke losers. And he took to Facebook before it all happened, and he made a post in 2015 after seeing how easily outraged people were with the Avengers, cough, cough, Jeremy Renner, cough, cough, over comments made at certain points of their press tour. Okay, so the actors from the Avengers movie, they went out on all kinds of press touring, and they talked to the media. There was some issue with Jeremy Renner, and people were easily outraged by things that were said on the press trail. And nowadays you can be canceled for pretty much anything. So 8 years ago, like 2015, Chris Pratt, he wrote this on his social media. He goes, quote, "I'm not in the business of making excuses. I'm just dumb, plain and simple. I try. I really try. When I do potentially commit an offensive act for which I am now pre-apologizing, you must understand I will likely have been tired and exhausted when I potentially said that thing that I will have said, have had said that I will have had crossed the line." So he's doing this pre-apology in 2015, and he's already apologizing for something that he might say that's offensive to somebody. Those rooms can get stuffy, and the hardworking crews putting their junkets together need some entertainment, likely. That is who I was trying to crack up when I will have had made the tasteless and unprofessional comments. So he's pre-apologizing for a potential joke that he says. Trust me, I know that you can You can't say that anymore. In fact, in my opinion, it was never right to say the thing. I definitely don't want to, but I probably will have said that to those I will have offended. Please understand how truly sorry I already am. I am fully aware that the subject matter of my imminent forthcoming mistake, a blunder possibly to be dubbed Jurassic Jurassic Gate. So he was in Jurassic Park, right? Is most likely in no way a laughing matter. To those I will likely have had it offended, rest assured, I will do everything in my power to make sure this doesn't happen again. uh, Possibly. So he's like pre-apologizing here for possibly offending somebody with a joke that he says on set, possibly on the set of Jurassic World, Jurassic Park, right? He's in those movies, and he said that most likely if I say something that's off color or offensive, it's going to be deemed Jurassic Gate. So this pre-apology has been making its rounds on social media. And the actor would do something that reminded everyone he exists in some form of like this is clockwork, okay? So say an actor says something and the Twitter acolytes would get out there in years past. Um, Now that Elon Musk has fired these Twitter yoga mat, matcha sipping, latte jackwagons, now that he's fired them, we don't have this curation team anymore. So they were the common employees tasked with curating what you saw, and they would make things trend, this curation team. But now that Elon Musk has gotten rid of that, what they used to do is cancel Chris Pratt, or they'd say cancel this actor, and they would get those things to trend, and then people would cancel them. And it still happens on occasion, but Chris Pratt, he usually faces cancellation because of his Jesus-based religion, Christianity, and Chris Pratt doesn't let that bother him. He a lot of time just simply quotes the Bible, and these naysayers, these people who try to cancel Chris Pratt just, melt and they have to, shut up because he's just simply one of the greatest living Americans. You can't change my mind on that. He is willing to stand up for what he believes in. And, on his Instagram, he posted a while ago him vacuum sealing some deer meat, which I think is pretty cool. One day he'll drop some scripture, the next day he's vacuum sealing deer meat. And, I'm sure that, and I know that Instagram post that he posted made PETA melt down and the vegans just completely melt down. So, Chris Pratt, I like him. He's peeving them all off today because that 2015 pre-apology has been making its rounds because they try to cancel him. He spoke at the Dodger Stadium for Christian Family Day, and the lefties tried to cancel him for that. But this pre-apology is quite hilarious. I'm going to be back with Scott Robbins on the Morning Buzz. It's Friday. Be sure to smash the like button. Look, Scott Robbins, Hunter
Yeah.
Biden, he just likes the smell of cocaine. He doesn't actually snort it. He just likes the smell of it. And, you know, he might even like the taste, put it in his gum line. Scott Robbins on the Morning Buzz.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
Well, this, I mean, the story sort of went away.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, they found cocaine, a bag of cocaine at the White House, unexplained. Unexplained. Now, again, I go back to this idea. What if it was ricin? What if it were some poison that was just left there? I mean, security cameras everywhere, and somehow nothing was found on the security camera. No fingerprints were found on the bag.
Of course not.
So we are just led to believe, okay, well, forget it. Nothing to see here, and move on. What? We don't know. We don't know any more today. We don't than we did then. So this reporter, this guy named Jason Leopold, sent a FOIA request to the D.C. Fire and Emergency, and he was asking for audio of the call to the hazmat team, pictures of the cocaine, where it was found, because we've been told like 3 different times where it was found. It's all different. And he was told that his FOIA request was denied in full.
Wow.
Why would that be? Unless, of course, you're trying to hide something. I mean, this story, this is one of those stories that it was there, and we were like shocked. The whole nation shocked. Holy cow. And immediately, of course, you direct your attention to the first son. That would be Hunter Biden. And we were told, well, he wasn't even there. Okay. Well, who was it? Was probably a staffer. What staffer? How did this happen? This could really be bad, right? I mean, this could have been, again, ricin. It could have been another poison. It could have been anything. You mean security is that lax that you can do that and get away with it? It's ridiculous. But anyway, this guy, I was reading the story today, and the guy offers his FOIA request, says, hey, man, we need to know this stuff. We have a right to know this stuff. It happened in our White House. Nah, not going to happen.
Well, not to mention, you can't just deny FOIA requests like that. Like, you have to provide information.
Yes. Well, you would know this more than I do,
say,
even. I mean, you've filed for FOIA request stuff before.
Yeah, you can't deny FOIA requests. There has to be hey, we don't have it. Like,
right.
That would have been the reason for denial is, hey, we don't have this stuff. And you mean to tell me, that you don't have pictures of where the cocaine was found? You don't have evidence that
you don't have emails referencing the cocaine?
Yeah.
This guy claims there's 19 of these, and he doesn't have access to any of them. And again, this is not a story you're going to hear everywhere, because I think there's a collective yawn going on. Like, you just accept the fact, it was just some tourist or whatever.
Joy Behar and MSNBC, they got out there and they started laughing about it like it was no big deal.
Yeah.
What do you mean? There's coke in the White House.
Well, yeah, and it's coke, but it could have been anything. I mean, it could have been anything, right?
Yeah.
It could have been anything. That's the scary part. Gee whiz. And was there a malfunctioning of the cameras? Was there not a clear shot? Were there cameras on? We don't even know that. If there was video evidence of whoever it was, we have no idea.
But decriminalize drugs, Scott Robbins.
Well,
that's the whole thing,
give
it's
them
not
needles
criminal.
Give them needles and Narcan. That's working out really well for those cities who do that. Really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the smash and grab thing. I was watching this today. It's like smash and grabs are up across the country. We know this. A bunch of people get together, congregate, run into these stores at noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and bash in the counter, steal all the jewelry in the case, or the Apple products or whatever, and they leave. And now all of a sudden you've got the Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, condemning it. You can't do this in our city. And blah, 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 blah. Well, it's happening, happening everywhere. Stores are then closing down, saying, well, we're not safe here anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, seriously, this is happening everywhere. And there's always a trickle-down effect to the smaller cities. There always is. It starts there, and that's where it goes. And the reason, of course, we know why this is going on, don't we? It's because there's no punishment. There's no consequence to any of these actions. I go in and I do this. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? First of all, they're not going to catch me. And secondly, even if they do catch me, nothing's going to happen. They know this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you said to them, listen, if you're caught, and again, this may sound extreme, but I think it would be effective. If you were caught in a smash and grab situation, 7 years in prison, automatic.
Yes.
Automatic. We're just going to put you in prison.
Simple solutions. Well, look at what the El Salvador president is doing. I think homicides went down 50%. It was terrible over there in El Salvador. But this guy says, you know what? If you even have a face tattoo resembling one of these gang tattoos, we're locking you up. Minimum 10 years.
And you could never do that here. Never do that here. And I'm not even really advocating for that, but it stopped. You know, I mean, we've said this before. If you're caught with a gun illegally, if you have a gun you own illegally and you're caught in a crime, 10 years.
Yes.
That stuff stops right now. We don't need crazy gun laws and weapons of war and all this other garbage. The question is, you punish people harshly who do these crimes, and you do that a few times, I guarantee you're going to see a reduction. This smash and grab stuff is really, it's outrageous. It's outrageous. It started with clerks being told they can't do anything. If somebody shoplifting, don't do anything. Don't approach them. Don't say anything. Don't do anything for your own. And maybe that's a good thing. But I mean, there's no consequence to bad behavior. And when there's no consequence, this is what happens. No consequence to and holding up your sign in your city saying, hey, we're a sanctuary city here. We don't believe in that stuff that's going on down there in Texas and Arizona and these other places. We believe in freedom and people running away from their bad situations. And then all of a sudden in New York City, Eric Adams is losing his mind because he's got an overflow of illegals. You said, and all these others, Chicago, same thing. Illinois, same thing. I mean, when you declare yourself sanctuary because you don't think it's ever going to be your problem, and then when it becomes your problem, all of a sudden, we need solutions to this. We're overrun. Of course you are. This is what you voted for. This is what you stood on. I don't understand any of that, but he's bitching and moaning now about it.
Mm-hmm. Lady Gaga's dad, too. That was hilarious.
Yeah, Lady Gaga's dad. Hey,
Lady Gaga. In front of an entire crowd, she goes, "We want Texas to turn blue," and it's like, what?
No, I mean, Texas doesn't want to turn blue, and Texas wants to keeps people from the blue states from coming into the red state and turning it blue. Mm-hmm. Remember why you fled that state. Don't vote accordingly, man. Oh man. So also, Joe Biden invented a new word. Have you heard this?
Yes, I love it.
Okay, well, let's get to. We'll discuss this. We'll play the new word, and then we'll discuss what the word is. Okay, Kat.
Okay.
All right.
But then, when I signed the bipartisan infrastructure again, when I signed the bipartisan infrastructure again,
okay, stop. Innovation, is that right? Innovation. What did he sign? What's the innovation bill? Do you want to take a shot at this? Because I can't. Any idea, Kat? None whatsoever. Right. Now let's play it one more time and let's see if it can help here a little bit. What is Joe saying? We should play this game. What is Joe saying? Here we go.
But then, when I signed the bipartisan infrastructure again,
Okay, yeah. And the bipartisan innovation.
I
don't know. He signed it. It was bipartisan, so some Republican, at least one, voted with him so he can claim bipartisanship, which he does that frequently too. But so I guess your innovation problems have been solved by the federal government. I know you were troubled with the innovations, Kat. And yeah, they were running wild at your place. You had innovations everywhere, and apparently this is going to take care of it. And that reminds me of one of other Joe's greatest hits, and we thought we'd play one more today because it's Friday. and again, this is another game we play. What is the president saying? Here we go. Is that it?
Nope.
Oh, okay. All right. Here we go.
I want to say something we don't say often enough, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart.
What's that?
I can tell you this.
What?
Excuse my language, but think about it.
Okay.
Rock and I think it's a right for people to have bad health care.
Okay.
For people to have bad health care.
There you go. Vatican care. Is he trying to say health care? But where's the VATA come from?
I think it's better healthcare. Better
Okay,
healthcare. Better.
Well, we need to hear
healthcare?
that again because we've had more time to study this one. Kat says better healthcare. Kat?
Let's play it.
Okay.
For people that have bad health care.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Maybe.
Kat speaks fluent Bidenese now.
Bidenese, the new
Yes.
language. Yes.
Yes.
Well, I have what is it? An app every morning. I wake up, I play a word, and
Yeah.
I try to
Well,
internalize the word, memorize the word.
you've got a Josetta Stone, is what you have.
Yes.
That's right. That's the best, right?
Josetta Stone.
Josetta Stone.
I love it.
All right, gas prices are going up. Where's Sharon Chung? Where is she?
Sharon, where are you?
I thought we were going to take on these oil barons and bring them to their knees. What's happening? Gas prices are going up to almost $4 a gallon again. Hello? I demand something be done. I want more sternly worded letters sent to OPEC. All right? Damn. All right. Talk to you later.
See you later, Scott
All right,
Robbins.
bye.
Scott Robbins is on later tonight for Markley, Van Camp, and Robin. Speaking about the gas prices, I've got the averages for you on the other side. How expensive is gas in Illinois? That's next. Former President Donald Trump, he announced last night, I just saw this, I did not see this morning. He announced that he's canceling his press conference. So on Truth Social, he was telling everybody, hey, I've got something that completely exonerates me. I'm going to be giving a press conference on Monday, but he canceled it. And he said that his lawyers prefer to put this in the legal findings, and they're putting this evidence in the legal findings filing. So, I mean, eventually, I guess we're going to find out what he's got, but he said that he was going to do this press conference. I'm kind of upset by that. That sucks. In his Truth Social post, he talks about how they never went after the people who actually rigged the election. They just went after those who fought to find the riggers. So that's what he said in his Truth Social post. And he said that there was a conclusive report and that it was lengthy, complex, detailed about how they actually stole the election. And instead of giving a press conference, now the lawyers think that that would be best in the evidence with the legal filings. I'm sure amidst all of that evidence is going to be this video. So this is an Illinois pastor, actually. His name is Stephen Lee. David Shistokis, somebody who has been here in the town of Normal advocating for the Citizens for Better Normal in a couple of lawsuits when we sued the town of Normal for not following state statute when it comes to, hey, these are, I won't get into all of it, but the town of Normal, we sued them with David Shistokis, the Citizens for Better Normal. So he's representing this guy, and this guy's involvement surrounds how he contacted this Georgia election worker named Ruby Freeman. Ruby Freeman, she's caught on video shoving the same ballots through the tabulator multiple times. And this is on video. This video circulated. It went viral, and it was a big deal. And now they're trying to sue this guy, or they're trying to go after this guy via the RICO Act because he knocked on her door and called her. And he said, look, I'm just a pastor. I was trying to help Ruby out. I don't like it. I don't like it. This whole Maui fire thing just gets weirder and weirder, folks. So this just in, the Maui Emergency Management and Agency administrator, he was resigning, and I guess the guy didn't even bother sounding the sirens. Their emergency sirens. He said that he didn't want to sound them because he was worried about people thinking that it was a tsunami, not a wildfire. Well, if people were to step outside, I think they were we're going to be able to see the smoke, the plumes of smoke, the flames, possibly, dude. Sounding the siren probably would have helped a lot of children maybe get out. Now we're starting to see this growing worry. People think that a significant amount of children were at home because the schools closed up because of the wildfires, and they were at home and they didn't know what to do. They don't know how to respond. If you were to sound that siren, maybe the kids could get out. But the parents were at work and the kids were at home, and they burned alive in their homes. And the governor, the mayor, they sat there and they were like all supportive of this guy who said that, well, I didn't sound the sirens because I was thinking that people were going to think that it was a tsunami. Well, you step outside and you're going to see all of the smoke and smell it. People are going to realize that that's a wildfire. And there's so much. I mean, they should have de-electrified those power lines, Hawaii Energy. They didn't because there's a crumbling infrastructure going on there. The complex systems are failing because they were dedicating their time and resources to converting to all renewable energy via wind, solar, and they didn't bother to maintain the power lines. And they couldn't shut them off or de-electrify them. So the power lines went down. They were told several times, hey, you got to de-electrify these power lines because there's favorable conditions for wildfires. And then the power company didn't do that. Now the state is trying to acquire the burned up land. The governor wants to acquire the land. It's just wild. And I don't like any of it. Good morning. This is the Morning Buzz. You can text in at 309-451-9299. I'm also live in studio on a Friday, the Friday after McLean County board meetings, where Chuck Erickson joins me for cigars with Chuck Erickson. We're in studio smoking cigars together. We love doing this on Fridays after the McLean County board meetings. We've got the McLean County board meeting I want to get to, but first, I was at the Illinois State Fair yesterday. Chuck, you were at the Illinois State Fair yesterday. I didn't see you. Where were you?
I was there. I was sitting up there on the stage listening to the speakers.
Yeah, he's big shot now.
And then I was out there talking to the freedom-loving Illinoisans out there in the crowd. Mm-hmm. So, we love our freedom.
Yes, and it was electric. I will say this, it was electric. I was very disappointed that Don Tracy did not mention the indictment or the banana type republic that we are in at this point. I think there's a lot of things that need to be fixed in Illinois, and you are working to fix those.
Yes,
those things, those issues in the 88th, because you're running for state rep. And
yes, I announced on Tuesday.
I've got my shirt in studio here. It's the Chuck Erickson for State Representative shirt.
You can't get them everywhere, but just get in contact with me and we'll make sure you get one.
And you're running, which is super exciting. I got to talk with your opponent yesterday. So I want to play that here first.
Okay.
And kind of get your reaction to, her run and what she had to say to my questions here. Let's take a listen together. You can grab those headphones there, I think, Chuck, so you can hear it.
Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. It's the Illinois State Fair, and Regan Deering is here, and she's running in the 88th State House District. And recently, Chuck Erickson, a McLean County board member, announced in that district. And I just kind of wanted to get your initial thoughts, reaction. Does that change the campaign at all?
No, we have been out on the trail 60 plus days, announced early, getting an opportunity to go and meet voters throughout the newly mapped 88th district. And I think that having a challenger is fine. Primaries are not an awful thing. I'm glad to see people getting engaged. And that's really a lot of our messaging is we've got to unify as a party. We need to work really hard. That's the message here at the fair today. We're going to keep working until we turn Illinois red. So I intend to just keep meeting people, keep letting them know that I'm going to go to Springfield, work hard for our conservative values. We need some bravery in Springfield. So I intend to lead some people that way and know that, we're on the right side of things. And it's just important that we challenge ourselves as Republicans to show up in places that might not be traditional for voters. And so we can continue to grow our party and really make the move in Springfield towards good policy for the people.
So non-traditional spaces, can you kind of give me an example?
Well, sure. I mean, when I was running in the congressional race last time, we have monthly Hispanic group meetings. We can show up in minority churches. We can continue to be in independent and Democratic territories where they're not expecting us to come. For me, I had labor halls that I tried to get into. We just got to think about what's best for Illinoisans. We got to stop thinking there's so much dividing us, and we just got to show up and tell them that our message is a winning one.
Okay, so in a recent piece, I think it was called Illinois, Dan Brady, an establishment type. I know you said that you have to start unifying the party. Is there a concern with Dan Brady very much being closely aligned with Chuck Erickson's race and him being more establishment career type politician?
Well, Dan Brady's had a storied career in Illinois politics, and I'm glad he's still staying engaged. I'm running my own race. I'm not going to try and define my opponent by any stretch of the imagination. He's obviously has a conservative record on the McLean County Board. So I'll welcome opportunities to have good conversations about what the voters want.
Okay, and now kind of a loaded question, and we've talked about it before. ADM and your affiliation with ADM and kind of gas pipe or these carbon dioxide pipelines, carbon sequestration, where you take carbon emissions and you shove it down into the ground to store it. There's this big pipeline that the ICC is kind of behind. They haven't talked about eminent domain quite yet, but that's kind of whispered. They're trying to avoid that by getting enough farmers to sign over easements. Your thoughts about that? I know you're from the Decatur area. 2 successful carbon pipelines so far, sequestration. Are you pro them, against them? Is this I know it's a totally different thing because it's coming from Iowa all the way to Illinois. Your thoughts on carbon sequestration and carbon pipelines?
Well, like everyone else, I'm learning. I mean, I'm definitely someone that likes to have the right kind of information, whether that's both sides. So ADM has been doing a good job at it for the last decade plus. And so, learning about the differences between this new pipeline that I'm thinking about. Obviously, the 88th is a very large ag farming industry, so want to be able to hear from the farmers and know what kind of issues like eminent domain are going to be important to them, and then I'll make the best decision I can.
Well, Regan, thank you so much.
All right. So that was an interview I had with Regan Deering, who is Chuck Erickson's opponent in the state representative district, the 88th district in the state house. Initial reaction to a few things we hit there. Dan Brady announcing you at the Bittner.
Let's start with the establishment angle. Okay, I've been a conservative who's always tried to work my way into the party to make the party more conservative. So if you're successful at that, that doesn't make you establishment. That just makes you effective. Okay, I mean, I've done that on the county board too. I've always worked to try to make Republicans more conservative. And that is my record, and I have a record of it. And, to sit there, as soon as I announced, they immediately called me establishment. And I thought, well, wait a second. Isn't that what Ronald Reagan did? He tried to make the Republican Party more conservative. Okay. That's what I've always tried to do. When I was chairman of the party, I tried to make the party more conservative. So, I mean, what was I supposed to do? Lose the election and then say, hey, I'm pure. I lost the election. I don't know what they define. It seems to me that some people define success as, if you do win the election and you hold a position, that somehow you become establishment. Well, that doesn't make you establishment. That just makes you effective. Okay. I mean, you have to win elections if you're going to move the ball.
So would you say that Dan Brady, he held the position, but would you say Dan Brady was effective, or would you say that he?
I would say Dan. I think some people need to take a look at Dan Brady's record. Okay, I mean, 80% of the time he voted against the Safety Act. He voted against the gun bills. Okay,
but voted for higher gas taxes.
Yeah, and I'm not defined totally by what somebody who supports me. I mean, is she defined totally by somebody who supports her. You should look at some of her donors. Does she agree with everybody that's given her money? Does she agree with everything Dan Calkins has ever said or done? Does she agree with anybody that's around her? I'm my own person. Okay. And I don't think anybody in McLean County who knows me knows that. But I want to say this, okay? When you serve, the reason they're trying to change that dynamic is to hide a fact that she really doesn't have much of a public record. Okay. In November of 2022, she ran for Congress. In April of 2023, 6 months later, she ran for the school board. And the very next day, she was planning her run for the state legislature. She had to have been, because she declared she was a candidate for the state legislature in June. So in a period of 8 months, she's run for 3 different seats. Okay. If they want to call me establishment, and I would prefer not to go there, let's just run on our record, then I would call her the perennial candidate. Okay. She's looking for some seat to fill. And does she really want to be a state legislator, or does she really want to do something else? Is she looking for this as her climbing step, or is she looking to go someplace else? You know, I can say it with my record that I've always tried to serve my constituents. And the fact that, let's say I'm on the county board, I get to know the sheriff, and the sheriff endorses me because the sheriff knows that I'm pro law enforcement. They call that establishment. They call that me being part of the establishment. It's like, well, wait a second. Am I not supposed to work with these people? So I'll be called anti-establishment?
What is the true intention of, because maybe somebody would argue that you would serve better as a McLean County board member.
Well, how about her serving better as a school board member that she just ran a race in? Why are people asking me that question? Okay. I mean, she just ran for the school board. Why didn't she stay on the school board
and make the change
make the changes she wants to do? In fact, she probably took the seat from somebody else who could have done the job. No, she turned around the very next day and ran for something else. Okay. So, I mean, why didn't she sit on the school board, gain a little experience in doing public service, doing constituent services, voting on issues, voting on budgets? I have 12 years of doing that. And those 12 years, I've been a conservative all the time. Okay. Okay. Shouldn't have that record. And so what they're trying to do is they keep trying to change the conversation away from her lack of experience. Okay. They keep trying to change the conversation away. I mean, sure, she's run for 3 different offices in 8 months, but I don't know that being able to run for office is a qualification to go to the next office. That doesn't make you more qualified. It just means you ran for office 3 times.
So I want to make sure that I don't want it to sound like, so do you need experience in order to run for an office, or can you just be a regular Joe?
You don't need experience, but it does help. I mean, you got to learn to work with people, and you got to learn to get things done. And, you know, basically you send someone down to Springfield who can work with people, who's done constituent services, and who can get things done. Why am I being singled out because I have 12 years of experience and she has 4 months of experience sitting on the school board, and all of a sudden she's the outsider and I'm the insider? I mean, if that's the definition of success, then we should never work to be on anything. Yeah. We should never work to get on the school boards. We should never work to get in the state legislature. No, I would prefer not to be in that because I want to be called the outsider. Well, wait a second. How are you going to get anything done if you're always on the outside looking in? Okay. I mean, and the fact that when I go in and I do these things, I'm able to get the endorsement of John Sandage, the former sheriff of McLean County. I'm able to get the endorsement of Matt Lane, the current sheriff of McLean County, because law enforcement, I was able to get the endorsement of the FOP because they know I stand up for them. Okay. I would rather have someone in Springfield who actually has a proven record of doing it as to someone who comes along and say, hey, everybody, I'm the conservative in the race. I have no record, but you can trust me as a conservative. I mean, wouldn't you rather have someone that actually has a record of doing it as opposed to someone who has a record of saying it? You know, Ross always likes to say, you know, watch what they do, not what they say.
Yeah, watch what they do, not what they say.
Watch
Yeah.
what I've done, and I've always been on the conservative side.
Mhm.
And there's no way they can take that from me. And they're not gonna come in and say, well, my public service record disqualifies me. Well, how does it disqualify you? How do you
Yeah.
plan to get anything done if you never win an election?
Yeah. Well, the public service record, right? You can't be disqualified as a conservative just because of that. And you've mentioned you can't be disqualified as a conservative because of the people you surround yourself around. Because
Well, when you're
you're
in
never gonna
when you do
agree.
public service, you have to have the ability to work with people,
Mm.
even people you disagree with, okay? Because it's the only way you can move the ball.
Even in the state of Illinois, because the state of Illinois, super majority, I say this all of the time, and I even think I've made it a very definitive statement. As a constituent, I won't vote for Republicans who sign on as a co-sponsor for any kind of legislation. Democrats can get it passed in
Well, do you think
Springfield.
Reagan will never sign on to a
No,
co-sponsor of a legislation?
exactly. That's what I'm
Are
saying.
you saying that for a
No.
fact? Do you know that for a fact? You
No.
don't.
No.
Okay. I mean, you don't know that for a fact.
Because she has no record.
She
Well,
has no
Dennis
record.
Tipsword had no record going into this. He was kind of an outsider, was into law enforcement. I think he served as the deputy Woodford County sheriff. But then he goes and he co-sponsors legislation with Democrats, and this legislation, particularly, is the non-citizens having arresting powers over citizens. Making
Well, I
it
can say you that I can tell you that I would not have supported that. Okay, I agreed with what Chapin Rose said about that. He's a state
Mhm.
senator, that it possibly may be unconstitutional.
Mhm.
Okay, so but I would not have agreed with that. But you do at times. Let's say on the county board, there's an issue about a $600,000 loan pool that's nobody's using. Okay, and you have a pandemic. Now, I initially proposed that 600,000 just be used to reduce taxes. I lost. So what do? Do I take my ball and go home?
Mm.
I mean, you can't do that.
Mhm.
So a Democrat on the county board said, well, then let's just give it out as no interest loans during the pandemic. And she called me up and said, would you support that, Chuck? I said, well, yes. Okay, so, wait a minute. Wait a second. You just agreed with a Democrat to get this done, okay? No, it was the right thing to do for the people. And that's what you're always looking to do. What is the right thing to do? I just happen to think that conservatism is the right thing to do for people. I mean,
love it. We have to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. I want to ask about the carbon pipelines because that was an interesting answer. She didn't really give one way or the other.
Okay.
I want your thoughts on it and eminent domain. You've kind of already done some work on the McLean County Board when it comes to wind farms, ordinances, things that have come down via the state that take it really out of the county's control. Then I do want to hit what happened at the McLean County Board meeting last night. I've got a couple of questions about this possible SWAT team, where the McLean County Sheriff partners with the Bloomington Police. It's bizarre. I'd have to talk with Matt about it. The Bloomington Police already has a SWAT vehicle. So is this a done deal? Is it really Bloomington that is doing it? I don't know. We're back on the Morning Buzz next. Check out the stream on YouTube and Facebook. Good morning. Hey, we were out at the Illinois State Fair yesterday, and we're watching the TV in here, and we're talking about how Darren Bailey was handling the media. Uh, and Darren Bailey was out there handling the media. He did make an appearance. I didn't stop and see Darren. I was talking to a few other candidates. Lisa Smith in the 96th. She's running in the 96th district. David Paul Blumenshine was actually out there, and in studio with me, Chuck Erickson. For
cigars with Chuck Erickson.
Chuck Erickson. It's the Friday after the McLean County Board meeting. He joins me. We're going to get to the McLean County Board meeting. I also want to get to Regan Deering and the ADM carbon sequestration. I feel like people are sleeping on this and they think that I'm a crazy wackadoodle environmental leftist, and that's just not true. I'm just anti-government. And you would think that we would be all for, like, hey, no, let's not do this carbon sequestration. It makes zero sense. But sometimes I feel like I'm an idiot. So I want to get your thoughts on it, Chuck Erickson. And David Paul Blumenshine, I believe, is on the line. David, are you there?
I am on the line, Kat. I'm here. I am here.
You were
wow, you're covering a lot this morning.
Yes, we already talked about how Chuck Erickson is not the establishment candidate, as the Illinois article referenced, because of his affiliation with people like Dan Brady, because of his long
or my affiliation with the McLean County Sheriff, or the former McLean County Sheriff, or Back the Blue, or the FOP. I mean, if success in running for office is defined as establishment, then all conservatives should just stop running for office and just lose. I mean, you have to win. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't do anything in public service unless you win, and winning doesn't necessarily, and it should never just make you establishment.
I think that Illinoisans are just so upset with the state and with the way elections have gone in the state of Illinois, where let's just say it, like, we don't trust it. There's no trust in faith in our elections.
Well, Dan Calkins,
Kat and Chuck, you were both of you were there yesterday at this Republican Day at the fair, the Illinois State Fair, and the grandstanding that went on. It's the same playbook. You know, for 2 years straight during that picnic, it was actually about Restore Illinois and the Bailey movement and the excitement that was created around a conservative candidate who was really saying, hey, let's look at safe streets and safe schools and the economy and our pension debt. And did you hear anything coming from the Republican stage about no Republican leader will even dare to mention the indictments, the unconstitutional acts that are being performed on a national level? I just am dumbfounded by the fact that we won't even mention it as a party. We have our former president, now our current front-running nominee, being indicted 4 times over, and the leadership of the Republican Party in Illinois doesn't even mention it.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that they didn't even mention either, the leader of the Republican Party, Donald Trump, but they didn't even mention there's an Illinois pastor, somebody who has been a faith leader in Chicago and is very well known, very well liked. And he was a chaplain. He was an NCIS special agent. He was a police chaplain. He was a police officer in California, has a long history of public service. And he's an Illinoisan, and he's being indicted alongside President Donald Trump. Nobody made mention that a faith leader, a man of God in the state of Illinois, is being indicted over crap because he knocked on the door to see if somebody was okay after she was caught on tape funneling in through the same ballots through that tabulator. Ruby Freeman, there's video of her having a box and running through ballots. That's just factual. I'm just looking at the video. She's running through ballots multiple times through this tabulator, and it's the same ballots. She's doing it multiple times. That's going to raise some questions. I think that raises some questions. And nobody brought that crap up at the GOP day.
I do want to talk about my campaign a little bit. I mean,
Chuck, let's talk about your campaign. Okay.
I had to leave the state
yesterday. You were there yesterday.
Yeah, and I had to leave.
Saw what was going on.
I had to leave early. Okay, because I had to actually be back for a McLean County board meeting because the McLean County board meeting was on Thursday night. So, I mean, I am in public service and had to be back to be on the board to represent my constituents at the county board meeting on Thursday night. So I didn't hear everything that was said. I had to leave. I mean,
Chuck, you heard enough of it.
I
You
heard
heard enough of it.
yeah.
You didn't hear any more. Nothing more was said. And I appreciate you serving and getting back. I had to be back for worship practice at my church last night at 6:30. You heard everything, Chuck. There was no more meat on the bone than what you heard. We had Congressman LaHood stood up there. We had
Who is lie? Well, not lie,
we
but
had RNC representatives. No one breached the conversation on a national level. I don't believe we can resurrect and restore Illinois until we start having, in Chuck Erickson's word, until we start having these fights and these discussions.
yeah. Well, and Darren LaHood, I'm sure, didn't mention the Nord Stream pipelines. There is a Seymour Hersh. Like, nobody's talking about that. The United States could be behind blowing up this pipeline, and people lied about it. And they're not telling the truth about who blew up that pipeline. And, Darren LaHood serves as intelligence committees and things like that. I've had him on, and he says, well, that Seymour, you mean to tell me that report, there's no truth to that at all? Seymour Hersh has award after award, credit after credit as an award-winning journalist, and he's got proof, right? That we have
to have transparent discussions. I will give Congressman LaHood credit where credit is due. He does sit on a committee, and he is pointing out that China is an existential threat to the security and safety of the United States of America. So
yeah, well, China and Russia, they were in the Alaskan War. Yeah. Like, nobody's talking about that, and I get where you're saying. Well, a Politico reporter was trying to ask you about why there was an absence of Trump at the.
An absence of presidential candidates represented. So I was there passing out on behalf of the Trump campaign placards for people to hold up, and unfortunately, we were told that those placards weren't allowed on the stage. The Republican Party now is moving towards the working class families. It says they have these placards that say working class families because for whatever reason, they don't want to even mention. But the Politico reporter came up and asked about the non-representation from the other presidential candidates. And quickly, I tried to flip the script on her. And she asked my name, and I said, yeah, you've covered me in some of your articles in Politico about, the insurrection and Stop the Steal bus and everything else like that. And she, once she heard my name, she quickly turned around and walked away. She knew that she met a buzzsaw, and she wasn't going to be able to just walk out her storyline of why she was there.
Go get him, brother. Go get him.
Yeah.
I'm not really trying to change the subject, but I would like to talk about the county board meeting in my campaign. If anybody
Oh, yeah,
cares,
that's right. There was a county board meeting last night. But
Chuck Erickson's here.
Just the reason I bring all that up, Chuck, is you're looking to serve the people of the 88th district.
Just like I've served the people of the County Board District 10 as a staunch conservative.
You're serving as one of 40 Republican representatives, and there's 118. So if my math serves me correct, that means that's a 78-40 disadvantage for the Republicans. And this is the thing. We're either going to talk about the issues that are driving Illinois right alongside what they're doing at the federal level, because I believe all politics are local, to get back to the McLean County. But when I say all politics are local, I'm not talking about the dog catcher or any other position that's locally elected. It's the influence of the federal government on local elections.
Well, it's impossible, and we saw it with and we gotta get to Chuck. We saw it with the town of Normal. Okay, that was just a perfect example because they broke a law. it was very clear that there was a law broken, and then they got their Sharon Chung acolyte who's running in the 91st, who ran
Cat's
in the
pointing
91st,
at me.
who ran in the 91st. Then she changed the law. It's like, and then they had their Michael Madigan attorneys come here. You had no chance. You try to stop something at the local level, and you have no chance because these people at the top are going to put their feet on your neck, and they're going to stop you from even trying to do local change.
One thing I do
Yeah.
want to say is my good friend Chris Graham sent me a text. He goes, "Establishment? Question mark? Really? They're calling Chuck Erickson establishment? I mean, no one believes that who knows me. Okay." And so, you know, I mean, it is my intention to run a positive campaign. It's my intention to run on my record. And if this is a campaign solely on my experience and my record, I win. I mean, I have that experience and I have the record. If it's a campaign about who's run for office 3 times in the last 8 months, if it's a campaign about you know, money, then I don't win. I mean, so that's just the way it is. And so I'm going to run on my record. It's a solid record. I mean, I have nothing to hide about my record. So, you know, it is what it is. I mean, I can't understand how winning is defined as making you establishment. I mean, you got to win to change things.
We've got to take a break,
Yeah.
but we're going to talk about the McLean County Board meeting. David, thanks so much for calling in.
Thank
and
you.
Nope, you're welcome.
Telling me about.
And Chuck, go get them.
Go
All
get
right,
'em,
I
brother.
tend to.
Go get them, brother. We're going to be back talking about the McLean County Board meeting. We might have some time for this carbon sequestration. That is on my heart and mind, folks, because people are just dismissing that. They're like, Kat, you're crazy. No, this is the new world order. Joe Biden, he wants all of these carbon pipelines, and nobody's talking about the biggest one, and it's starting right here in the state of Illinois. That's next. The Muhammad Aquifer. What if there's this big carbon pipeline that comes in, you're a farmer, just living life in McLean County, then all of a sudden you get a knock at your door. It's the big government, ICC. They say, look, via eminent domain, we are going to put this carbon sequestration pipeline down into the ground. And before all of the people start screaming, Cat, why are you against these pipelines? They did the same thing with fracking, and we were for fracking. Carbon pipelines do not serve any kind of purpose. They're not repurposing the energy. It's not giving, fracking provides energy.
Yeah.
Carbon sequestration is storing carbon emissions down into the ground. Carbon emissions are not a problem. We need carbon emissions for the trees to be alive. I just don't understand how people are after me for this. Even Republicans are after me for this. And it's because there's money to be made. That's why people want these carbon pipelines. It's about the green. It's not about the green. It's not about the trees. It's not about the environment. Despite what they will tell you, it's about the money. And your thoughts? She does have she's affiliated with the company ADM, and they have a couple of these carbon sequestration pipelines. Now, these are totally different from what is coming to Illinois. It's these big wolf pipelines. There's a Navigator pipeline, and it's taking carbon from other states and running it through Illinois and into the ground. And they haven't talked about eminent domain quite yet, but they're working on easements and getting farmers to sign over those easements. Your thoughts, Chuck Erickson, about carbon sequestration?
Well, I think one question you definitely have to ask, is it going to be safe for the water? Okay. I mean, that's the Muhammad Aquifer has to be protected. And first question, is it safe? Second question is, okay, if I don't have the votes to defeat it in the Illinois legislature, what's your next step? What's your fallback position? Okay.
Mhm.
In your fallback position is you're going to have to fight for everything you can do to make it safe, and make it everything you can do to make it fair to the landowner. Okay. That they get a fair deal out of it.
Well, and
Okay.
then even I would take it a step further to try to get it into the legislature.
Yeah.
That's step number one, because right now I think it's all up to the ICC. The ICC has
Yeah.
got this.
Well, that's what they did to the windmills. I mean, they basically told the counties, "Hey, you guys can have all." I mean, Pritzker basically said, I think it was 2019, yeah, county should have controls. I may have the dates off here. Yeah, county should have controls. And then 2 years later, no, we don't like what you're deciding. Okay, so we're going to take it away from you.
Mhm. And via
The
eminent
best government's local. Let people decide.
Yeah. So the McLean County Board meeting, we're going to get to that. I got to get to a couple of our sponsors here. You're listening to the Morning Buzz. We're going to get to these sponsors. We're going to get to the commercials. We'll come back. We're going to get to the McLean County Board meeting, updating a 20-year-old criminal justice software system, and a few other things that happened. That's next. morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. This is the Morning Buzz. It's a Friday. Please smash the like button if you're watching on YouTube. Cat Peterson 929. Subscribe to the channel. Chuck Erickson joining me for Cigars with Chuck Erickson. It's the Friday after the McLean County Board meeting last night. They updated a 20-year-old criminal justice software system. Tell me about that.
Well, we have to update the system because the system's, occasionally, when you're dealing with an out-of-date system, you got to update it. And this system is in serious need of being updated. So it coordinates with everybody else. And so that's what we're working on. Back to my campaign quickly, and then I'll come back to the county board. I know the other side's listening. It is my intention to run a positive campaign. It's my intent, but if you're not going to run a positive campaign, then let's just run a campaign on our records, okay? And just have it at that, okay? If you're going to do something else, then just say that, okay? And that's the type of campaign we'll have. It's not the type of campaign I choose. All right, back to the county board. All right, last night we met at the McLean County Museum of History. We met at the Museum of History because they're doing renovations over at the Government Center. As you know, the county government shares the same space to hold their meetings as the city government. So they're renovating it. It was a nice meeting. We had a good meeting. Issues that could be coming up could be we didn't address the SWAT team, and that hasn't come back yet. We have to wait. The sheriff actually has to present it to us. Okay, he has to bring it forward again. Okay, so when he's ready to bring it forward again, we'll have that issue again. But we didn't have it last night. Next month, we'll be getting into the budget. The budget will be presented to us, and we'll be looking at the budget for the fiscal year 2024. So we'll be working on the budget. And, I know budget things are not sexy issues, but, we want to keep taxes low, and we want to keep the budget balanced. And that's what I think that the county has done well at. And I think that's certainly, I don't want to take all the credit for it, but certainly in part because of my tenure on there. Sorry, Kat, if you have any other questions about the county board,
Well, one thing that's concerning, we only have like a couple of minutes. One thing that I think is a concern for people is that the Bloomington Police Department, the city council recently made this purchase. It was like near $300,000, this big armored vehicle. It's like a Bearcat vehicle. And now I'm thinking that they're taking the lead on this, the city of Bloomington, rather than the McLean County Sheriff's Office.
No, they're two completely separate entities. Okay. I mean, and the city of Bloomington can do what it wants with its police department that the county government has no control of. All our agreement was the sheriff was going to work in coordination with the city of Bloomington. And because there was going to be some coordination and working together, that it had to be approved by the county board. Okay. Because of that coordination that was going to be placed in there.
Well, that definitely is something that I want, because we get representation through the McLean. We vote for Matt Lane. And if we're going to have some sort of SWAT team, I would like the McLean County Sheriff to be involved on that because he represents the people.
Well, he can have his own. I mean, the sheriff can have their SWAT team. The city of Bloomington can have their SWAT team. But the idea was where we can coordinate and work together, we should. Okay. I mean, that's what the idea was. And so, that gave an opening then for some of the defund the police movement to move in there and say, well, we don't want you doing this and we don't want you doing that, because, well, wait a second. That's not the way it works. The sheriff still has autonomy over his own thing. The only reason he came to us was because he was going to work with the city of Bloomington.
We've got to go, folks. You guys have a great rest of your Friday. Bye. I love you. Have a great rest of your day.